Hey, World Geography quiz 4 review. Good to see so many of you on. I do have a couple completed quiz 4s already, and they were pretty good. A couple more requests to do them, and I do owe a couple people their graded quizzes from the last week. So why don't I start off by just saying, is there anything that anyone wants me to go over? Any concepts, anything from the last 4 lessons? If you remember, that's the Middle East, South Asia, East Asia, and then Southeast Asia. I will say on quiz 4, there's not too much Southeast Asia, very, very little. It's mostly the lessons on the Middle East, South Asia, and East Asia make up the quiz questions. That's on purpose because sometimes at the end of the semester we're rushing to get things done, and I don't put the focus on the very very last lesson. Okay, so I see China history. The main things to know about Chinese history, big picture, big picture is that China had an ancient civilization, ancient Chinese civilization, not something that we know much about in the West. That those ancient civilizations were ruled by what we refer to as dynasties, and a dynasty is where the ruling family was maintained through generations, but not always through direct descent. So it's similar to a monarchy, but instead of the root descended from grandfather to father to son, sometimes it passed through uncles and cousins and other male relatives. So that's the dynastic government. So there are many dynasties in China's long history. But we really just want you to know, out of all the ancient dynasties, I just want you to know the Han, H-A-N, Han dynasty. And that was the one of the biggest and the longest lasting in Chinese history. And they're also the ones responsible for the spread of Mandarin as the official dialect of Chinese. I'd also like you to know some of the last couple dynasties. In fact, the last two were the Ming and the Qing. The Ming were significant as the builders of the classic section of the Great Wall of China. And then, of course, were the ones who, the last dynasty of China, which fell to first to imperialism, and then the Boxer Revolution was a backlash against imperialism and colonialism. And then the Qing, the last dynasty, falls to the nationalists, right? Chinese Republican, whose government will really only succeed into the 1910s, 1920s until they're challenged by the communists, and then fighting between the national communists really continues until 1949, when the communists emerge victorious and their leader Mao Zedong becomes the premier of the People's Democratic Republic of China. From then on, I only want you to know a few big events in Chinese history since 1949. Really, the three biggest being the Great Leap, the Cultural Revolution, and then finally pragmatism and open cities. Those were not really political events, but economic events that opened China to America, to the West, to allow American companies to build factories there, allowed China to catch up with Japan and Korea and the other Asian tigers, and eventually allowed China to leverage its huge population as a workforce for the rest of the world, to become the #2 economy and the #1 exporter. So that's an awful lot of history in about 5 minutes, but that's the highlights that I want you to know from Chinese history, nothing else. Nothing else. Japanese history, a lot of interesting stuff from ancient feudal Japan. That was mostly for your information. I don't believe I ask any questions about that. I'm mostly concerned about Japan after 1868, when Japan moves to the West and to America and starts to industrialize. In particular, Japan as a colonial power, being aggressive and conquering Asian countries, something that's going to continue until its defeat in World War II to the United States. And then in post-World War II Japan, really the emphasis is on their economy and how they rose to be the number 3 economy in the world, as well as the number 1 automobile manufacturer in the world. That was done through what's known as the value-added economy. That is where the Japanese take normal everyday things like automobiles and consumer electronics and appliances, and they keep upgrading them with new added features. And, kind of cell phones is a perfect example, right? Every year, more phones come out with newer and more advanced features. So people got to scrap the old ones and run and buy new ones. Same idea. That's the value-added economy that has allowed Japan to become such an economic powerhouse, and really the textbook Asian tiger, right? Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore, and Hong Kong, the Asian tigers, referring to an advanced, industrializing, rapidly growing economy. And again, by comparison, they grow at 7% or more a year. The United States maybe 1%. So I see David asked, can we do the full review? Yeah, I'll pull up the review sheet. And certainly Kashmir is one of those things, so we'll get to that too. So let me share my screen.
I had
Yes, sir.
a quick question. So I have like a very crazy schedule right now. So is it possible that I could schedule my quizzes 2 and 3 for like the weekend, like Sunday, or weekends are not allowed?
Are definitely allowed, but you have to let me know what day and time by Friday night.
I'll send you an email by tonight to schedule them.
Yeah, that would be perfectly fine.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome. Excellent question. Let's get chat back up. Okay. So you see here, I hope everyone can see it, the review sheet. The most from East Asia and the Middle East. So I'll start off with things, although I hope that some of you can answer these. What's the Arab Spring? What is it, and why is it important? Why do we care what the Arab Spring is? Arab Spring doesn't have too much to do with oil. Remember, the Arab Spring is a popular uprising, so an uprising of the people. And I'm going to look for that term, popular uprising, in any answers, right? So why are people revolting? Why are they uprising? They're protesting against their own governments, that they find their own governments to be too restrictive and too authoritarian, and they demand basic democratic freedoms like freedom of speech and freedom of the press, as well as they're demanding more democracy, the ability to have elections and have some kind of say in their own government. They're also protesting economic conditions and protesting for more economic opportunities in their countries. So that's the Arab Spring. It started in 2011 and it's still going on. It's a current event. So does anyone remember the countries that it happened or is happening in? There's 5. Countries where the Arab Spring is happening at.
Egypt,
Tunisia is, I'm sorry, go on.
Egypt, Yemen, Tunisia. I can't remember the other two.
That's okay. So I think everyone heard that. Arab Spring starts in Tunisia and it spreads to Libya and Egypt. And it's also happening in Syria and Yemen. So those are the 5 countries: Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, Syria, and Yemen. Moving on to occupied territories. So that's pretty easy. The occupied territories are there areas of pieces of land that Israel captures from its neighboring countries. They're known as the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, Gaza, Gaza Strip, and Golan Heights, Golan, Golan Heights. So those are the 3 territories captured by Israel from its neighbors in some of the wars that Israel has fought. Oil in the Middle East, that's a pretty complex thing, and I'll direct you to the PowerPoint slides from the Middle East lecture, as well as the section in your textbook that my slides, and I'll get you a page number here for a second. Pages 241 to 245 in the textbook. You're going to read those, and you're going to know the things that oil has meant for the Middle East. There's 12 of them. There's quite a few. I won't go through them all, but that's something I want you all to know. What oil has meant for the Middle East. The 12 things. They're on my PowerPoint slide for the Middle East, and they're also on page 241 to 245 in your textbook. So next, Palestine and Kurdistan. What's those places? Or rather, those people? What's Palestine and Kurdistan? Are they places? What's special about them? Yeah, exactly. They don't have a territory. The Palestine and Kurdistan are 2 stateless nations. We want to think back to our definition of a nation state. So we have the nation part. In other words, the Palestinians and the Kurds are both 2 nations of people, 2 groups of people that are homogenous. They're similar in some way, right? Yet they don't have a country, right? That don't have a state of their own. They don't have a territory that they call their own. They live in a territory. They live somewhere, but that territory is not controlled by them. It's controlled by another government. And the Palestinians, of course, they live in those occupied territories, so they're under the control of the Israeli government. And then the Kurds live in portions of Turkey, Syria, and Iraq. So depending on what country they live in, they're not under the control of any Kurdish government, but rather the Turkish or Syrian or Iraqi government, right? So those are the 2 stateless nations in the Middle East. And last one, this is easy. The 2 types of Islam. What are those? What's the difference between them? I could imagine the essay question already. What are the 2 types of Islam and the difference between them?
The Shiites and Sunni.
Yeah, so there's Shiites and Sunnis, right? Those are the two types of Islam. What's the difference between them, though? You remember? So the difference between them is they disagree on who is the successor to the Prophet Muhammad. Sunnis feel that any devout Muslim can be a leader in Islam, where Shiites say the leader has to be a blood relative, a descendant of the Prophet Muhammad, like the guy from 600 or so AD, and that's the difference between them. They still disagree about that, and then Sunnis are the majority, about 80% of Muslims. Moving on to this, also say any other questions from the Middle East lesson? Oh, seeing none, move on to South Asia. Three important things to know there. One, what the caste system is, right? That is a social ranking system that actually comes from ancient times, from a Vedic belief system. It's central to the Hindu religion, that every Hindu is born into a caste, and what caste you're defined by what you did in previous lives, since another core Hindu belief is that of reincarnation. So if you were bad in your past life, that's why you're born into a lower caste, and so on and so forth. The caste system is very rigid. You can't move between castes, and the main effect or impact of your caste is it determines what career you can go and what types of work you can do. The highest castes can have jobs in the government, in the military, in business. The middle castes can sort of do more average things like being merchants and traders and skilled workers, and then the lowest caste is for unskilled laborers and for dirty jobs, cleaning and mining and farming and so on and so forth. That's the caste system. Indian monsoon, I won't say too much. It's an annual rainfall that begins in the late spring in May or June, continues to the early fall, almost constant rainfall, and it really is only rainfall that the Indian subcontinent gets. So all the rain falls from late spring through the summer to early fall, and if you don't get your crops in the ground before it, you're out of luck, because the monsoon being the only rainfall, all farming and agriculture in India is dependent on the monsoon. As the monsoon goes, agriculture goes, the food supply goes. And if there's a weak monsoon, crops don't grow as much and people starve. So it's very, very critical to life in the Indian Peninsula. And lastly, Kashmir and Jammu. Kashmir and Jammu are two provinces of India. They are in the north of India. They border Nepal and China and Pakistan. And the problem with Kashmir and Jammu is that Pakistan, China have claimed that territory or portions of it as their own. So Kashmir and Jammu is disputed territory three ways. It's disputed between India, Pakistan, and China. And all three countries have their militaries there to kind of enforce the status quo. The majority of people living in Kashmir and Jammu are Muslim, and they would prefer to be part of Pakistan. But the rulers decided that they want to remain part of India. And again, so this is an irredenta issue. It's really Muslim, Pakistani irredenta within India. And then also China is claiming a portion in a territorial dispute. So that's Kashmir and Jammu. Any questions from South Asia? I don't believe there's any other questions from the South Asia lesson, but there might be one more that I'm blanking on. Any questions on any of that? Okay. So from the East Asia lesson, I already spoke about Asian economic tigers. Tigers it's just a nickname. It's not an official term like BRICS or emerging markets. In fact, the BRICS and the emerging markets are not the Asian tigers, right? Different idea. The Asian tigers became wealthy before the BRICS, right? They grew their economies before the BRICS, and it really refers to Japan, South Korea only, Taiwan, and Singapore and Hong Kong, and those have rapidly growing economies back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. Places where a lot of technology is developed, where a lot of wealth is generated. So the Asian economic tigers. I went over quite a bit of Chinese history, so let me know if you need to know more. What's the demilitarized zone, and what does that do? Where am I referring to with the DMZ? Nobody? Issues are separated by the DMZ.
In Korea, one.
Yeah, so the DMZ is a zone, a security zone that separates North and South Korea. It's about 10 miles wide and is patrolled by 30,000 United States military personnel. So it's a no man's land between the two Koreas, and it's necessary to keep the peace because there's no official peace treaty between North and South Korea. They're still officially, at least, in a state of war. Right. So again, that is something I want you guys to know, not just the DMZ, but also the differences between the two Koreas. Right. One is communist, North Korea. One is democratic, South Korea. One is secretive and poor, and nothing's known about it. That's of course the North. And South Korea is one of the Asian tigers, and it has an advanced capitalist Western economy where a lot of stuff is made there. The system. Anyone remember what that was? Anyone want to explain that to us? The Hoku system. Nobody?
I don't know exactly what it means, but I think it has to do with like controlling the population in China
Yeah,
or something.
yeah, no, that is exactly what it does. The Hoku system it's a residential registration system. So you have to have permission to live wherever you live. It would be like having to get permission to live in Paramus, right? After moving there from Park Ridge, something like that. And it is on purpose to control the population. So without a Hoku card, Chinese can't get access to healthcare, retirement benefits. They can't register their children for public schools, and so on and so forth. And the Chinese government, by controlling who gets what Hoku cards and making them available or unavailable, they can move their population around. This is important in two ways. One, when they want to attract foreign investment or any investment really in a particular place, they make new Hoku cards available for skilled workers. And again, I gave the example, which is a true example of where the American company Boeing wanted to build an aircraft factory in China. And when they settled on a location, that location, the Chinese government made new Hoku cards available for anyone, all billion people in the whole country that had experience building aircraft. There's another example with Hanwei New City, which was going to be a university city, and new Hoku cards were available for anyone in the education field. The other way that it's important is that this is the way that the Chinese Communist government wants to settle Tibet, as well as of Irredenta, is they make Hoku cards available, but only for ethnic Chinese, only Han Chinese, Mandarin-speaking Chinese in Tibet. So with the new cards, Han Chinese can move to Tibet they dilute the native Tibetan population. So that's two ways the Hoku system is important. I already talked a bit about Japanese history. So if anyone needs more, I could say more. And then I also defined what the value-added economy is, not just in Japan, but in other Asian nations. So on test 4, do we have a map? Yes, there is. It's a small one. Only I think 4 or 5 labels need to go on it. Very, very easy, small map. Promise. From Southeast Asia, Indonesia. Remember, that's the big guy, the big country in South Asia. It's kind of flies under the radar because it's split between thousands of islands in the Indonesian archipelago, right? But it is actually the 4th largest country in the world in terms of population and the largest Muslim country in the world. A lot of people think a place like Iraq or Egypt is the largest Muslim country, but they're wrong. It's actually Indonesia. Tiger cubs. Well, tiger cubs they're the next generation of Asian tigers. So again, it's not an official term, it's a nickname. Tiger cub countries are places like Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, Vietnam. It's thinking that in 30 to 40 years, they will be where South Korea and Japan and Taiwan are today. So in the future, they will be advanced, growing economies. They aren't right now. And then another term, sort of the official term for tiger cubs, is frontier markets. And that's contrasted with emerging markets, right? The emerging markets, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, they're all happening now as we speak. The frontier markets or tiger cubs is something that economists predict are going to happen in 30 or 40 years. And lastly, Vietnam. I detailed quite a bit of history of the country. Really just looking for people to know that it was once a French colony, and they fought for their independence from France, only to turn around and be split into a communist North, democratic South. The United States props up South Vietnam throughout the Vietnam War under attack from the North, which the North's victory ends not only American involvement and unites the country into a communist state of the People's Republic of Vietnam, but it ends European and American colonialism forever, for good, in 1975. When I was 2 years old. So let me go back to me, and we'll answer questions. Okay. So any other questions pertaining to any of this, any of the quiz material, anything in particular I could explain further? How the grade works? Oh, okay. So that's easy. To get credit for the class, everyone needs to complete 4 quizzes, and the average of your 4 quiz grades has to be a passing average, and then you pass the class. Simple as that. So if you know your quiz grades, right, add them all together, divide by 4 for your average, or just email me. And then again, if you completed a class project and you have it returned to you by me, that counts for extra credit as an extra quiz, or replaces your lowest quiz grade. I will automatically do whatever gives you a better, higher final average. I hope that's all clear. Everyone good on that? Yeah. And again, once you turn in your 4th quiz, if you've completed 4 quizzes, you can email me for your unofficial grade. Be happy to tell you, and then it becomes official about December 23rd, right? When I input the grades into the WebAdvisor system. yeah, once I do that, I'm no longer responsible. Usually I don't have any problems. Sometimes the college has delays in uploading my grades that I turn in, so it might not become official till later. Uh, yeah, whatever. Technical difficulties, part of life. Well, thank you very much, Nancy. I'm glad that again that you enjoyed it. That a lot of you enjoyed the class. I've enjoyed teaching it as well. Um, I get a little bit of a break for about a month, and then I got to go back to work in January. Looks like another online edition of World Geography for me. I think somebody commented yesterday that it should fill up quickly, and in fact it has. I think I have 30 something students, or at or close to the classroom size. Anything else I can go over? Really, from anything in the class. Again, most of you that have been keeping up, I see your names on the WebEx. I have quizzes from you. I don't see anyone in danger of not passing. I would have warned anyone who was. Sort of the only people in trouble are the people I haven't heard from all semester who haven't turned in anything. All of you that have been keeping up with the assignments, I predict you'll be pleased with your grades, and no problems. Just got to get in that last quiz or two if you haven't. Anything else? I will say I did recording this review session by request. A couple of you couldn't make it this afternoon, so I'll put this recording on Dropbox. Hopefully, tomorrow or Thursday, in with the web lectures. And anyone who needs to view this review can do it then. The Dropbox site is packed. I keep getting messages we're running out of. So if there's a issue with file size, I'll keep this on, and maybe I'll take some off, like the additional readings. So some battery. Thank you very much, Noah. I'm not teaching any other classes as far as I know currently, or for spring 2021. It looks like spring 2021 will be another edition of this class. I guess that means, unfortunately, you won't get an opportunity to take me again. I have in the past asked Dr. Chu, he's the department chair of history and geography, if there's other classes for me, and he said we'll see what we can do. Always goes semester to semester, because our enrollment changes quite a bit at Bergen Community between the semesters. Sometimes we have as many as 20,000 students. Other times we have as few as 10,000. You can email me the project, of course, although I think I have one from you. But if not, yes, email it to me. And if you sent me a class project from me about it before the end of the year, I promise. And Nancy also mentioned the review, the SMART evals, the evaluations of me the college does. So that survey's out there in your bergen.edu inbox for you to take. And again, it's anonymous. I don't see it. I just get a summary report. How many projects? You mean how many have I received? I believe 4 or 5. I believe I have 4 or 5. And I've not had a chance to read all of them. I've read a few, I think 2. I haven't gotten through. I've been slacking on my reading. Any other questions? All right, so if anyone has any questions on the topics, on the quizzes, send me an email and we'll chat. It's always possible for us to set up our own WebEx, just one-on-one or with a small group. So that's a possibility if it's necessary. And then I will say farewell. It's been an honor being your professor. The regular group who tunes in is a great group. And I, again, appreciate everyone sticking with the class, giving it their effort under kind of different and unusual circumstances. And I wish everyone the best for their future. For, of course, maybe we'll bump into each other in the hallways in next fall or something. And wouldn't that be great? We could say hi then. And if I could help anyone in their future, with something like a letter of reference or helping you get into a four-year college, be sure to let me know. Shoot me an email. It's not unusual for me to hear from former students, even after a couple of years. That's why we have professors, right? To get recommendations, someone who knows our work, anything like that. I'm more than happy to do it. I'm honored when people ask me when former students ask me for a reference. I'm always happy to do that for anyone. So with that, I wish everyone good luck in their future. Keep those quizzes rolling in, and all the best, everyone. Thank you.